Namaste. Welcome to Mental Health and Wellness with Divya Hari. Before we start off today's episode, let me ask you a question. Do you find the need to get everything right, or do you feel like you need to have everything figured out? Our topic for today is perfectionism. To talk about perfectionism, we have with us today Ms. Pranjal. Pranjal is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and a counselling psychologist. Let us welcome her on our show today. Hi Pranjal, welcome to our show.
Hi Divya, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great as well.
We were talking about how perfectionists have a need to get everything right and they want everything figured out. Before we get to that, could you tell us what perfectionism is?
Right. So perfectionism, like how the name suggests, it is trying to be and act perfect in all the ways that they can. And to be very honest, it's not such a negative behavior as we think. I mean, trying to be perfect, trying is the key word. If somebody is trying it, how can it be so negative? But the challenge starts where once they happen to do something, wrong or critical, they start evaluating themselves on the basis of it and forget about learning and focus just on keep that task going, and unless it becomes the perfect in their mind, setting the highest goal standards for it, is where it becomes the huge challenge.
Like you mentioned, being perfect is not the mistake here, or trying to be perfect is not wrong or not negative, but the consequences of it or the pressure they put on themselves when they don't achieve something does have a huge impact on their mental health, right? So perfectionists strive to get everything right. They want to do everything perfectly, as the name suggests. They want to be right at everything. They want to know where they're going. They want to know where their life is heading. They want to be clear about everything, right? So this must be very hard for a person to want to be a certain way, right? It is like molding or forcing themselves to sit or fit in a certain way, which might be very hard for them. What do you think causes them to want to be a perfectionist?
Before we get to the causes, I would like to add few more things about perfectionism. So when it comes to perfectionist thoughts, they are quite critical about themselves. They are thinking whether I'm good enough, or whether the thing that I'm doing is right, or who will say what on these things. And when it comes to their emotions, they feel anxious, they feel fear, they feel embarrassed, so many plethora of emotions that they feel. Or when it comes to their actions, they might want to stay inside the room and not meet anybody unless they feel that everything is going to be right or everything is going to be in control. Or the physiology of their body, the body reacts in a way that it's in a heightened alert state of mind, where they are constantly working around with every single action and the thought that they are going to be entering into. So all in all, it suggests that somewhere it's a learned response, which can be unlearned and relearned. So it need not to say that once somebody becomes a perfectionist, they cannot come back from it. They can always unlearn and relearn.
What do you think puts them here? Like you mentioned, it is a learned response, right? And where is this learning coming from?
Right. So there can be so many causes. It can be a certain traumatic event that they faced in childhood, or it can be certain critical comments. Specifically when it comes to our childhood, our parents, they shape us the way that we think, or our guardians or the loved ones that we be around in.
Even it can for be that matter, teachers.
Yes, teachers, very important. Or it can be our peers in our schools. So there can be so many things that can lead us to being in a certain way and having a certain output.
Right? So you mentioned about how our peers, our teachers, our parents, our guardians shape us into who we are. So even a single negative comment when we are a child can really make us into perfectionists. For example, parents wanting the child to achieve well, or even physically punishing the child when they don't score well. This can ingrain the thought in the child that if I don't score well or if I don't perform well in life, I will not get the love I want, or I will not be accepted by the society. So this is where the thought comes from, right? This is how people imbibe that I need to have everything figured out. I need to be right at everything in order to be accepted by those who are around me.
True.
And when it comes to perfectionism, there are many types of perfectionists. Could you tell us what are the types of perfectionists?
So before I get to the types of perfectionisms, I would also like to mention while you were saying that came to my mind how difficult situations or how some psychological challenges that can also add to leading one to become a perfectionist, like OCD, or it can be a certain environment that they have seen in their childhood when it comes to psychological problems related to or psychological challenges related to their loved ones, and they can just feel that okay, everything needs to be done in a right way if it is needed to be lead in a right way.
With that being said, do you think perfectionism is somewhere linked to self-esteem or self-confidence of a person?
Oh, completely. I mean, it just it's like a spiral or a loop. One affects the another. So if a self-esteem is a little low and we get a certain comments, we try to be a little perfect in things that we do. And if we start being that way, we kind of feel that I have to be doing everything perfect. That means that I am not today, and that again affects our self-esteem. So it's kind of to and fro unless we break into that loop. It keeps becoming huge and huge like a tornado. It starts from here but keeps becoming huge. So yeah, I mean, while answering that as well, the types of perfectionism. So there are majorly three types. One is socially oriented, one is self-oriented, and another one is others-oriented. So when it comes to socially oriented, we feel that we are socially responsible, and we have to take into account of other people's thought of what they are thinking, how they are feeling, and set into that societal stereotypes, and then only we will be perfect. Or it can be self-oriented, wherein I feel that everything that I am doing is not perfect, and having much more critical thoughts of how I need to do every single thing in a specific way, and I start questioning from the space that I wake up till I go to bed. I keep thinking about it every single point of time. Or it can be others oriented, wherein we are thinking about how others are adding to adding to our emotions, and they need to be perfect in that sense that if somebody is putting a glass over here, I think they need to be working around with that and keeping it exactly where I would like it to be.
And perfectionists also have this sense of wanting to be in control of everything, right? So when they lose control, there is a huge blow on their confidence. There is a huge blow on how they perceive themselves, how they look at themselves. What do you have to say about that?
So while we are looking at managing everything better when it comes to perfectionism, over the period of time it becomes about I need to micromanage everything. So everything needs to be in my control. Everything needs to be in the way that I would feel that only I can change it, and there is no uncertainty involved. The key word over here is uncertainty.
Yes.
The one cannot stand uncertainties in their life, and if something just out of the blue comes in, they are shocked. They don't know how to respond. So they calculate all their responses and then react. So of course, being in control being one part of the sign that they are into perfectionism.
We spoke about first thing, wanting to be in control. We spoke about fear of uncertainty, that I don't want anything out of my control to happen. I am very scared of what might happen tomorrow, so I want everything to happen in my favor.
Right.
So I'm going to work so hard that everything is going to be in my favor, right? And having such powerful thoughts, having such strong thoughts in their mind can be very impactful, can harm them. Could you tell us what are the impacts of being a perfectionist?
So when it comes to impact, the major things that are affected is our psychological aspect, our physical aspect, our relationships, our health, to every single thing. I mean, it's interconnected, it's an interconnected mesh. So one starts affecting the another thing. Psychological challenges can be like anxiety, depression, OCD, or it can lead to, further diagnosis like that, or too much of stress at every single point, and which can again lead to so much of impact on our physical health, like a hair loss, or having a chronic pain in at certain points of our body, or it can be just not being able to develop the trust that we would be required in any sort of relationships, and that affects our relationships at a huge level, or it affects our self-esteem and self-confidence, like how we discussed, or it just impacts on how you be present in the moment. It just takes you somewhere else in the moment and you feel calm, but wherein you are losing touch with that present self of yours, or losing touch with the productivity levels of yours, and eventually again adding on to your self-esteem and self-confidence.
Right. So you spoke about the impacts, about how it can impact our physical body as well as our psychological self, and even our self-esteem for that matter, right? How can we overcome being a perfectionist?
Right, that becomes very important. I think whenever we talk about any challenge, what is important is to how we can deal around with it. So there are majorly, I would say, 3 steps that we work around with. 1, awareness, then comes to acceptance, and then comes the action plan or the implementation of what we can do about a certain thing. So awareness being talking to somebody you really care about, or whom you trust, that can be really, really helpful. Or journaling it down, recording it, so that you can hear your own thoughts, because otherwise it all stays in our own mind. Or it can be at times reaching out for a professional help too. So when it comes to acceptance, it is again very important to understand that it's okay to be in such a state. It's okay to think, feel, or act in a certain way, because again, it's a learned response. It can be unlearned and relearned back. So once we are into that phase of awareness and acceptance, which is ongoing, one step after and again we feel like, okay, some more awareness needs to be created. When it comes to action plan, what becomes important is quite a lot of things, beginning with understanding that we also need the positive aspects as well. We need to focus on those positive aspects and challenge our inner critique of what is our mind saying, that I'm not good enough. What makes us feel that way? What makes us say that way? Right? Challenging that becomes very important. Or it can be just distinguishing between the fact of what can be in our control and what cannot be in our control. That also affects a huge part of our self-esteem, that we think that we cannot control anything, and so we want to control everything. So just deciding and distinguishing between what is in our control and what is not really is helpful. Or finding humor, or confronting our own fears, of course step by step at their own pace, and if not by yourself, you can always reach out to a professional, is I think I would tell to every single person present over here. Or it can be just using certain relaxation techniques at first to help you calm down, to be able to progress in all of those other things. It can be as simple as box breathing or any other such technique which you use for your own relaxation, any activities that you like doing.
Great. So thank you for talking about perfectionism, tips to overcome it. Before we wrap up, could you tell us the mental health tip of the day?
Definitely. So today's mental health tip of the day would be to remember that time doesn't heal everything. What we do in that time does. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here and talking about perfectionism.
Thank you so much, Divya, for having me here. It was really lovely.
This was it about perfectionism. I will be back with another episode with another topic. Until then, take care, stay safe. Thank you.